Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jez. I am a librarian as well as a public speaker, and today I'm going to be talking to you about shopping, saving, and storing all of your favorite kinds of food. We're going to talk about how to save money, how to get financial assistance, how to find the best produce, and how to store it so that it lasts longer. Before I became a librarian, I worked with teens and college-age students to help them learn life skills. So some of this presentation will be focused on starting out on your own for the first time, but there's plenty in here for people who have been shopping for a long time. If you check out my website at jezlayman.com/shopping saving, you'll be able to download these slides as well as find a list of resources. So we're going to start with shopping. If you're starting out for your first time, you've never had your own kitchen, something to know before you move out and before you start this new kitchen is that the cost of just getting the basics on your shelf can cost you more than 1 month's worth of groceries. So you need to figure that into your budget before you move, because you may not have the money to continue after that point. You want to make sure you have in your kitchen some basic stock like flour, sugar, baking soda, salt, your favorite herbs and spices, cooking spray, vegetable oil, rice, cereal, canned goods, which will last on your shelf much longer, pasta, and any condiments you like, such as ketchup, mustard, or syrup. You're also going to want to have a couple of ready-made meals available. These could be frozen meals that you keep in your freezer. This is also very good during a pandemic because in addition to spending all of our time at home, we are also under quite a bit of stress. Even if we are not individually impacted, we're kind of sharing the overall stress of the unknown at the moment. And sometimes that's going to lead you to not wanting to make dinner that night. So it helps to have things on hand so that we're still getting the nutrition we need, you're still getting your daily calories. We do want to make sure we take care of both our physical health and our mental health, and that means eating 3 meals a day. For your new kitchen, you're also going to want to have some non-food items on hand. These will also cost you quite a bit, so make sure you have them beforehand, or figure out which ones you can start with and what you can buy along the way. These include mixing bowls, a can opener, cookie sheets, various pots and pans in different sizes, any cooking utensils like slotted spoons or spatulas. Silverware, I recommend having at least twice the amount that you would think you need so that you always have some on hand and you're not washing your dishes constantly. To wash those, you're going to need some dish soap, as well as cutting knives, not just butter knives, measuring cups and measuring spoons, oven mitts, paper towels, if you can find them right now, small appliances, and other things you'll find around the house. What I recommend to most college students who are starting out on their own is to keep track for a week of what they're using at their parents' house so that they know what they will need in the future. Something you need to know before you move out or before you go shopping is you should know the cost of the items you plan on buying. So if you go to Numbeo.com, there are a couple of other places like this as well. It will give you a cost of living calculator, and it will break down what you should expect to roughly pay at the store for various food items, as well as meals out, gasoline, and other daily essentials. This does change regularly. This is accurate as of April 2020. In addition to cost of living calculators, you can also find these numbers by looking at a variety of circulating ads that you receive in the mail. This is probably the junk mail that you throw right in the recycling bin. Take a look at that. Pay attention to the different prices at different places. Make up your plan based on different stores. You may have to go to multiple places to find the best deals, but you should keep in mind that you're also paying for the transportation between those places, so it may not actually be cheaper to go to 3 different stores than it would be to pay slightly more for an item at one store. Right now, as we struggle with the pandemic, the rules are a little bit different. So in this case, I would recommend finding the prices and where they're cheapest and going to only one store so that you're limiting your time out in public with others. You want to make a plan before you go. You should keep a list. This can be a paper list, it can be on your phone, it can just be a sticky note that you put on your phone so you don't forget. That's what I have to do. I either stick it on my phone or to my front door, because otherwise I will forget. You want to keep a running list throughout the week instead of just sitting down and trying to remember what you need. You're going to keep a list as you run out of things. I actually have a chart on my fridge that lists common items, and I just check off which ones I need as I run out of them, or as I know I'm getting close to running out of them. The best thing to do with your shopping to avoid paying too much is to plan your meals ahead of time. You want to consider your weekly schedule as you do this. Right now you may be home all the time, but once the restrictions from the pandemic are lifted, you might be going out to eat more, you might have some late nights at the office, and you want to plan around those, as well as who else will be home at that time if you have a family. Who are you cooking for that night? Is it 4 people or is it 2 people? That's going to change your plans a little bit. The best thing to do is to plan meals that use similar ingredients, especially if you're cooking just for yourself or you have the option to buy in bulk. That may not be an option right now, but do it whenever you can. So this might mean having chicken in 2 separate meals that week. Maybe one's a pasta and maybe one is a soup. So you can still make a variety of things, but try to pick common ingredients so that you're not wasting part of those ingredients. So if something needs only a quarter of an onion, you might consider finding something else that needs onions so that you're getting the most out of what you've bought. You do want to check your recipes before you start cooking, because there may have been something in there that you don't remember and that you don't have on hand, even though you planned that meal ahead of time. And the most important thing you can do when doing grocery shopping is to check your fridge and your cabinets before you leave the house. Make sure you know what you're out of, that you're not buying more than you need, that there might be an extra box of crackers in your pantry that you didn't notice, and you don't need to buy that just yet. You can compare this with your running list. This is also a good time to clean out your fridge. Make sure you're doing it regularly so that you're not leaving anything in there that could potentially make you sick, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. A couple of tips for shopping for groceries. If you know your store well, you can organize your shopping list by aisle or food type so you can get through very quickly. Even if you don't know the store, the best thing you can do is to shop the perimeter. That means go around the edges of the store. That's where the cheaper items tend to be, rather than cutting back and forth. You can also just organize your list by food type, such as buying milk and eggs, having them on the same list so that as you're going around, you're not realizing something later and having to track back. This is especially important right now as we try to limit our time out of our homes. You never want to shop hungry or tired. You'll be more likely to make impulse buys, in addition to just not wanting to be there and forgetting things because you want to get through as quickly as possible. If possible, you can shop in off hours, such as the middle of the day or late at night, depending on your local store's hours. These are less busy times, you can get through more quickly. It's also more likely that you will find things fully stocked on the shelf. Of course, that could be a little bit different right now, depending on different shortages, but do your best. Right now, we may have a little bit more flexibility in our schedules, so that's a possibility. Especially when you're first starting out, but also as you run out of things, if you find that you are getting rid of things before they're fully used because they've expired or just otherwise gone bad, you want to do your planning in advance to know what size or how much of an item to buy. If possible, you want to buy in bulk, but keep in mind that bigger is not always better. You may want to check the cost per weight for each item. This is on the price tag of every item on the shelf. You just have to look below the big number. It will tell you, by ounces or by grams, how much it is, and you can compare different brands that way and see, which number is lower. Because even the bigger package, they may be charging you more for the packaging than the food itself, and it may actually be cheaper to buy the smaller item. You should also keep in mind, what is the shelf life of this item? Does it make sense to buy in bulk, or will it be going bad before you have the chance to use it? So when you're buying things like milk or other items that are likely to go bad quickly, consider how often do you use this, how much do you use at a time, and what is the shelf life of this item. If you're ever unsure, start with the smallest size first. You can always buy a bigger size later in the future, but you want to limit the amount of waste coming from your kitchen. The most frustrating thing with grocery shopping is that even after you've bought something, you get home and 2 days later you need to throw it out because it has gone bad. This is especially problematic with produce, and a way you can avoid that is to know the different signs on how to find the best produce so that it's already in good shape and it will last on your shelves longer. I'll also be giving you advice on how to store things to lengthen the life of that item. So some things to look for. I have a handful of items on here that you might be buying regularly, and here's how to find the best ones. For asparagus, you want to find some straighter stalks with tight purple buds. So if they're spreading out more, it's a little bit older. For avocado, you want to find a firm fruit with waxy skin. Obviously, you don't want any mushy spots. Your fingers should not dent the avocado. And it might seem silly, but one way to tell if an avocado is fresh is to hold it up to your ear and shake it. And if it makes a rattling sound, that is not an avocado you want. That is a pit that has pulled away from the fruit. Blueberries. This is something that goes bad very quickly for most people. You want to look for some plump, firm berries. You want to find a dark indigo color. The lighter it is, the less you want to buy it. Obviously, avoid any mushy berries, but we can't always put our hand into the cartons to find out. A lot of people avoid blueberries that have that white frost on them because they think it's dust or pesticides. That's actually a very good thing. That's the kind of blueberry you want. For broccoli, we're looking for a dark green color or even purple. You want to look for some firmly clustered heads, not spreading out in different directions. You also want to avoid any yellowing on the broccoli. That is broccoli that is starting to go bad. For carrots, the firmer, straighter, the better. We're also looking for a bright orange color. If it's kind of a whiter one, those are carrots that are drying out and they are not going to be very good. Grapes can be a little bit easier to figure out by sight because they generally come in clear bags and you can lift them up and see from different angles. We're looking for plump grapes. We don't want any wrinkles. We want them to be firmly attached to the stem, so if you're holding up the bag and a whole bunch of them are separated from the stem at the bottom of the bag, you may not want to buy that particular pack. You also, of course, want to avoid any shriveled or discolored grapes. For a kiwi, you want them to be lightly fuzzy, and they will yield to light pressure. You don't want to find anything mushy or wrinkled. We're not trying to squeeze the kiwis. You don't want to poke any holes in it or create those mushy spots. You just want to see if it is very hard. That's something you want to avoid. For lettuce, we are looking for crisp, unblemished leaves. You want to avoid anything with brown edges or rust spots, those little red spots on there. That is lettuce that's on its way out. Onions should be firm. They should be dry and papery. And you don't want to have an onion that has any husks or sprouts on it. That's an onion that may have been sitting in the store too long and it's starting to grow on its own. That's not one you want to use in your cooking. For peaches, we're looking for a yellow creamy color with a bit of red blush, but we don't want any green on the peaches. They're not ripe that way. They should be slightly fuzzy and yield to light pressure the same way that a kiwi might And again, you don't want to squeeze too hard and damage the peach. Potatoes should be firm but smooth skinned. There shouldn't be any sprouts, eyes, or soft spots. So look for the potatoes that have the smoothest texture all around. For raspberries, this is one that goes bad very quickly. You're looking for a dry, rich color. You want to have generally the same color and shape across the whole carton. So if some of your berries are looking small and shriveled, or are much pinker or much darker, you want to avoid those. And of course, we don't want to buy any berries that have been smashed. For spinach, we're looking for fresh, tender leaves. They should be bright green, and there should be no yellow spots or wilted ends. That's spinach that's starting to go bad. You don't want to bring that into your house because you won't be able to have it in your fridge for very long. For a watermelon, you're looking for a dull rind with a yellow underside. We obviously don't want any cuts or sunken areas, nothing mushy. And again, it may feel weird to listen to your produce, but if you slap a watermelon, you should hear a hollow thump. Now, the COVID-19 coronavirus has changed a lot of life for us, and shopping, especially for groceries, has been impacted very heavily. So some of those rules are going to be a little bit different. I wanted to give you both of these so that you know things when the pandemic has passed and we're able to go back to what we might consider normal life, as well as what you are able to use right now. So when you're out shopping right now during the pandemic, you want to limit the number of people in your group. Ideally, only one person from each home will be doing the shopping at a time. You can take turns. It doesn't need to fall on the same person every time. We just want to avoid having more people in your group and larger crowds overall in the stores. We want to limit the access of everyone to keep us all safe. With that, you also want to only go shopping when necessary. You want to make a list throughout the week, as I mentioned, so that you're not going out just for 1 or 2 items because you realize there was something missing from your recipe. You want to go out and make bigger trips rather than lots of small trips throughout the week like you may have done on your way home from work. If you are feeling even a little bit under the weather, please stay home. It's for your safety. It's for everyone else's safety. A lot of stores, especially in our area, you can use their app or go on their website to put in an order that you can later pick up at the store with curbside pickup, so that you can just open your trunk, have the groceries put in, and you don't need to interact face to face and potentially put other people at danger. We do not want to use reusable cloth bags. The cloth can hold the virus, and you're putting the cashiers at risk by making them use them. So even though it is more harmful to the environment, right now we want to use the plastic bags. And you can always dispose of these properly. Lots of stores collect these, such as Jewel or Target. You can bring them with you on your next trip and put them in those bins so that you're not harming the environment quite as much. You want to wear a face covering the whole time you're in the store, as well as when you're in the parking lot. It's helpful to have wipes and hand sanitizer to use before you go in the store as well as when you come out. You should not have to bring wipes to clean off your cart. Most stores are doing that for you right now and lining up a few carts at a time at the entrance rather than having you get them out of that cart corral so that you know which ones have already been cleaned. With the face covering, you want to make sure it covers both your mouth and your nose completely. If it does not cover one or the other, it is too small. You want to pay attention to and follow the distance markings on the floor. These are in places there may commonly be lines, such as the checkout, the pharmacy, or the deli. So those show you how far apart you should be at 6 feet. Just use that. Be patient while you wait in line. They will get to everyone. Now, this goes against most of what I just told you about finding good produce, but we want to avoid picking up food and putting it back so that any germs that are on your hands won't be transferred to somebody else if they end up buying the fruit that you didn't. Do your best to judge your produce visually before making a selection. Most of the things I mentioned can be done by texture or color. You don't necessarily have to pick it up and feel it before you choose it. And in the checkout line, avoid using cash wherever possible. The healthiest option right now is to use a credit or debit card so that you are not passing things between you and the cashier. The most important thing for shopping during a pandemic is to be patient and to be kind. Everybody is struggling right now, everybody is stressed out, and we need to do our best to support our frontline workers, including our grocery store workers. Next, I'm going to talk about saving. So this is going to include things like how to get things at lower prices, coupon apps, but I'm also going to cover other finance things in this, such as food insecurity. When you're first starting out, or you're trying to save money, or you are having a major life change, it's really important to look at your budget to determine what you can and cannot afford. You should include things that are necessities first, such as medical bills or prescriptions, as well as water and electricity and food. So these should all be considered before you consider moving to a new apartment or making a big purchase. These are the basics of your budget before you add in anything else. So every month the USDA puts together a report about the cost of food in the United States. And here you can see it broken down into 4 different plans. There's the thrifty plan, low cost plan, moderate cost, and liberal. This is basically how much are you willing to pay for your food and how much food can you get. A lot of people fall in the lower 2 plans of this, especially younger people. But you can see on here that even with the thrifty plan, it adds up very quickly. Each of these numbers is for a single person. And even when you add them together, you can still save a little bit for families. So a family of 4 doesn't necessarily add up to the same thing of each of their ages on this chart added together, because you're able to buy in bulk and you make meals together and your food goes a little bit farther. But even so, I think we all know how expensive groceries can be, even just the basics. And it's important to go into your monthly plan with a budget in mind so that you're not spending more than you need or more than you can. So what you want to do is set a spending limit before you start shopping, and it should be realistic for what you need. You can use that cost of living chart to add up different costs for what you might pay in groceries. You can keep track while you're shopping. You can add the cost as you add things to your cart. You can use the calculator on your phone. You can write it on your list or put the prices on the notes app in your phone. You should always round up and leave room for tax, just because you don't want to get to the register and you're short by just a little bit. You want to make sure you stay below that limit that you have. A lot of stores now have apps that allow you to scan your items as you put them in the cart. So while you're shopping, whenever you grab something, you just scan the barcode. And then at the register, you can scan a code from your phone that will automatically load all those items into your order so you don't need to rescan them. This will also help track the total for you, so you can see the price of each individual item, where you're at in total, and you can decide which things to put back without being embarrassed at the register. One of the probably more well-known plans for saving money, the envelope approach, which is that you have separate envelopes for each type of spending in your life, and you have cash in them, and you are only allowed to spend what is in that envelope. So if you were going to the grocery store, you would have an envelope for groceries, and you would not have other forms of spending with you. So you'll be limited to exactly what you have, and you can't go over that budget. Another way to save is, of course, finding deals, clipping coupons. You can sign up for your store loyalty programs. The loyalty programs, I think, have gotten a lot better since I started doing this program in 2016. A lot of them keep track of your spending, so you can actually go back and see how much you spend in each order. and that could help you with your budgeting. It also will give you a certain amount off for every however much you spend. For example, Meijer keeps track of my spending, and whenever I hit a certain point, they give me $8 or $2 or more off of my next grocery shopping trip. So for me, that's essentially getting $2 off for doing nothing except typing in my phone number at the register. When we were trying to figure out the price of items, I mentioned that you should compare store ads. This is another way to find deals. You can see which items are cheaper where. Also consider generic brands. These are your non-name brand items. It's the same food, sometimes even the same company making the same food, just with different labels on the front. So a brand name does not necessarily mean it's better. A lot of times it's completely the same. They may not be placed as prominently on the shelves or in the freezer, but they are there for pretty much any item, and you'll save a lot of money buying those generic brands instead. If you are able to, if you have the funds and if you have the space, it's also smart to stock up when there's a sale. That if that's something that you plan on purchasing again in the future relatively soon, if it's something you get regularly, it makes sense to buy multiples when it's cheaper rather than buying one and going back the next time and it's full price again. Of course, this depends on the shelf stable life and how often you're going through things and how much. But if it's an option, it's certainly something to consider. You can also clip coupons. More and more they're going online, but we still get plenty of coupons in the mail as well as in the Sunday newspaper. The goal here is to keep them organized. They do make some nice coupon organizers where you can put them by type of food or by store so that when you get to the register you have them ready and you're able to use them, as well as have them available while you're shopping to make sure you're getting the correct amounts or the correct size or brand, whatever the fine print on the coupon requires. Something to consider if you don't have a newspaper subscription, as I suspect many of you don't, you can see if your local library pulls out the coupons from their newspapers. The libraries get multiple newspapers a day, and especially on Sundays, those come with coupons. Sometimes you can find those in a bin somewhere that you can go through, even if there's a limit on how many you can take. Of course, right now that's not necessarily an option with the libraries are closed, but hopefully in the near future you will have this option again. If you're not into literally clipping coupons and keeping track of them, there are all kinds of coupon apps out there. This was the most recent list I could find. These are the best coupon apps of 2019 from nerdwallet.com. And they recommend coupons.com, which is great for the sheer number of offers they have. It's also really good for grocery shopping in particular. And it allows you to add coupons to those specific loyalty cards at stores so that you can check out more easily without having to open multiple apps to scan at the register. The Coupons app is really good for shopping and dining, not specifically grocery. It also integrates promo codes that you can find online, which may give you more savings than the coupons themselves. Another app called Shop Savvy is really good for price comparisons, which could help you with your budget as well. It also allows for barcode scanning so that when you're in the store, you can scan an item and figure out if it's cheaper somewhere else, or the store you're at may actually take price comparisons and give you the lower deal that you have found somewhere else. The Target app is, of course, best for people who shop at Target. It's not going to help you anywhere else, but it allows you to search deals and coupons either in the store or ahead of time. All you have to do at the register is log in with your phone number, and it will add all of those deals automatically to your cart based on the items you have purchased and the deals you are eligible for. Coupon Cabin is the last of their top 5, which is good for online and in-store shopping, especially for the larger companies that have both presences. It's also good for members-only deals, so you have to be a member of Coupon Cabin in order to receive these, so they're more exclusive coupons. So you can pick one of these, you can pick multiple, It might be hard switching between 5 different apps or more, but if you're really dedicated to couponing, that's a great way to do it. Otherwise, I would just say to start with the one that works best for you and your situation. But I think a lot of us are really limited on the amount of time that we can spend on our grocery shopping, let alone all of the research before grocery shopping. In 2018, 37.2 million people lived in food insecure households in the US. This means that they are sometimes skipping meals or eating less at meals than they need in a regular day. It also means they're buying cheaper options, which are generally less nutritious food, or in a lot of cases, it unfortunately means that they are feeding their children, but not themselves. 1 in 6 children in the US is food insecure, and there are 14.3 million US households suffering from food insecurity. These are numbers from 2018, which is the most recent research that we have at the moment. Hopefully these numbers will get updated, but unfortunately I do not think that the numbers will improve. So I wanted to keep in mind that nearly 1 in 7 households with children cannot afford to buy enough food for their families, that 1 in 7 households with children cannot afford to buy enough food for their families, and 1 in 4 families who are food insecure are unlikely to qualify for most of the federal nutrition programs. So that means that 25% of the people that are already food insecure are not getting the additional help that they need. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure this presentation included how to get help on those, that it's not necessarily just about clipping coupons, but there are people who are really struggling with this and need more than that, need more than comparing deals. So if you fall into that, the USDA National Hunger Hotline is available. This is a number that you can call and they will answer your questions over the phone as well as tell you where your nearest food bank is. Whyhunger.org does a similar thing. They also have a lot of resources and data, which includes a map of the nearest sources of free food. It may be interesting to you to check out what these are, even if you are not taking advantage of these programs, just so that you can see how many or more likely how few are available in your area. Feedingamerica.org is very similar to Why Hunger. You can find your local food bank as well as information on public assistance programs through this website. A lot of people who are eligible for assistance get it through SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. This is for low-income individuals. That number is regularly changing, so make sure you check in. At the moment, it is if someone makes less than $1,718 monthly for an individual, or $3,541 for a family of 4. It is also open to refugees and persons with disabilities. It used to be that you would have, literal food stamps, but there's a massive stigma attached to that, which is unfortunate. But thankfully now they give you an EBT card, which is essentially a debit card that you can use at approved locations. It is limited to specific items. Some items are not covered by this, but it hopefully will help your family get the basics that they need. Now again, things have changed drastically in the last couple of months, and food insecurity is one of the biggest concerns during COVID-19 for those who have lost their positions and lost their general income. So if you lost your job or you've become food insecure because you've lost hours or you're just not being paid during this time, you are eligible for assistance from SNAP and WIC, which is for women and children, as well as food pantries in your town. As of April 1st, 2020, there are no minimum work hour requirements in order to receive assistance from SNAP. Originally, you would have to be working a certain amount to show that you are contributing to society in order to receive these federal benefits. But unfortunately, that is not an option for most people right now because so many stores are closed or employment is just very uncertain. Food pantries are still open and have implemented curbside or drive-through services in addition to increased safety and sanitation requirements. And if you are able to help, please consider donating to your local food pantry. You can give them shelf-stable items, but monetary donations go farther because they're able to also get those coupons and deals and, comparison shop. It also allows the food pantry to provide items like milk or eggs, which are not shelf-stable and need to be purchased more often. Finally, we're going to talk about storing. So you have gone to the store, you've bought your items, you've saved money at the register. Now it's time to actually keep those items longer in your household so that they don't die 2 days later and you're throwing out uneaten food. One thing to keep in mind is where to store things in your refrigerator. The placement in your refrigerator actually does matter quite a bit on how well it will keep that food. Refrigerators are very well insulated, so everything is staying cold, but there are some areas that are colder than others. So on the top shelf of your refrigerator, you want to have things like leftovers or foods that are safe to eat without cooking. This could include drinks, deli meat, cheese, pretty much anything you could just pick up and eat. The middle shelf of your fridge is actually the coldest part. So this is where you want to keep the items that are more likely to go bad if they are not kept cold. So things like milk, fish, meat, and eggs. So a lot of your dairy and a lot of your meats. And the bottom, you probably have 2 drawers in the bottom, and they have options for making them high humidity or low humidity. Most people don't know what those mean, and you might have one or the other. You might not be using them same, or you just set them both to the middle so that they're even. These actually do really affect your produce in particular. So in your low humidity drawer, you want to have items that have a high ethylene content. So things like apples, grapes, pears, something that gives off a lot of those ethylene gases and will turn quickly. A high humidity drawer is for items that are sensitive to those ethylene gases, like lettuce, pears, and carrots. So you don't want to store your apples and your lettuce in the same place because it will actually make your lettuce go bad much faster. A way to remember this is that a low humidity are things that will rot and high humidity are things that will wilt. That may not be the easiest thing to remember, but hopefully you can figure out which drawer to put things in. When it comes to storing leftovers, perhaps the most important thing is to use actual food storage containers. It's very tempting to just use the takeout boxes that we get, or you might have leftover Cool Whip tubs, Cool Whip butter tubs, anything like that, those plastic containers that food originally comes in. These will not keep your food fresh as long as containers that are actually dedicated to this. They're also very bad for your health if they are used for reheating. So glass containers are ideal, especially if you get the kind of Pyrex ones that are less likely to break. But it's very important to keep some plastic containers on hand just for ease of use. They're much better for packing your lunch or taking a meal on the go. If you store your leftovers in the refrigerator, the point is to actually eat them. I think a lot of us don't end up eating everything that we put in the refrigerator because we get distracted or our plans change or we just want to have something else. So if you're really looking to limit the amount of waste in your kitchen, it's important to actually eat the leftovers you have and to put them in your meal plan for the week. You should also be cleaning out your refrigerator regularly. I mentioned that it helps to check every week when you're putting together your grocery list to see what you have available or what you don't. This is the point where you want to check those expiration dates. You should also know the shelf life of common items. There's a searchable guide at stilltasty.com, which I find very helpful because not everything has an expiration date on it. This will also work into your planning ahead of time so you can see how long something is likely to last and decide if you are able to use it in the amount of time that you have or if you should wait to make it in a future purchase. If you have something in your refrigerator, like condiments, that you don't know what they're used for, if you are not using these items, get rid of them. You don't need to keep something just for the sake of keeping it. You should only be putting in your refrigerator what you're actually planning to eat or use. Now we're going to talk about how to make your food last longer, particularly your produce. These will be the same items that we talked about at the beginning to see how to find the best produce. So once you've found the best asparagus, to keep it fresher longer, you want to trim the ends and store in a tall glass of water with the tops covered by a plastic bag or plastic wrap, and you will keep those in your refrigerator for up to 7 days. Something to keep in mind, of course, is that it requires a lot of vertical space because asparagus are kind of long, so you'll need to plan that around your refrigerator configurations. Avocados, you can ripen at room temperature in a paper bag, and then after that you can refrigerate a ripe avocado for up to 7 days. If you need to ripen anything faster, you can put it in a paper bag with an apple or a banana, those items that release those high levels of ethylene gases. That's what will make other fruits and vegetables ripen faster. Broccoli is one of those items that goes in the high humidity drawer. You can just have it in plastic and you can keep it in there for up to a week. Blueberries, you're going to want to transfer from the original cartons or plastic that you bought them in and put them into an airtight container. You don't want them washed just yet, just leave them as is, and you can keep those for up to 7 days. Carrots, you want to cut off those green leafy tops, and you want to store them in a container of water. You can have this up to 3 weeks. The biggest issue with carrots is that they dry out too quickly. That's when they start to turn white, or they just become too tough, or they're just not tasting as well. So it's important to keep these in water so that they can retain some of that moisture. Grapes, you want to refrigerate unwashed in a shallow bowl for up to 7 days. So you don't want a covering on this. You want to leave them open to breathe. Kiwi is another thing you can ripen at room temperature in a paper bag, and you can refrigerate in a plastic bag for up to 7 days. So very similar to the avocado in this case. Lettuce, you can put in a plastic bag and a high humidity drawer for up to 7 days. You can also wrap them in foil and they will last up to a month. I have done this, I do this regularly. It is amazing how much of a difference this makes and how much more time I'm able to get out of a head of lettuce. Onions, you want to store in a cool, dry place with good airflow. You can keep them in there for up to 3 months. They will last for 8 months if you store them in pantyhose. So the way to do this is to just put an onion in the leg, tie a knot, put the next onion in, tie a knot, so that you can use these individually, and you can just pull them out as they're needed. It's kind of a strange thing to do, but you will get more than twice the amount of time out of your onions. Peaches is something you can also ripen in a paper bag, and you can refrigerate these in a low humidity drawer for up to 3 days. So your peaches aren't going to last nearly as long even when you store them correctly. So you'll want to make your purchases based on that. It might be something that you eat earlier after your food trip, or perhaps you wait to buy it until a later date because you don't know that you'll get to it in time. Potatoes, you can store in a paper bag in a cool, dark place. Do not store your onions and your potatoes together. They will negatively affect each other, so you'll end up with both of them going bad. Raspberries, you're going to refrigerate in a single unwashed layer covered by a damp paper towel for up to 3 days. So if you take care of them well, they still only last for about 3 days. That's why sometimes it feels like as soon as you've gotten home, they've already gone bad. So again, you want to plan ahead with your purchases here. Spinach, refrigerate unwashed in a plastic bag in a high humidity drawer for up to 5 days. You can also freeze spinach and use it as needed. You can freeze it for up to a year. You want to pat the spinach down with a paper towel first to remove the excess moisture so that they don't end up frostbitten. But after that, you can seal them in just a zipper bag and put them in the freezer. I do this with mine because you can only buy spinach in large quantities sometimes, and I just want a little bit in my smoothies every now and again. So I take it, right out of the bag, put it in the blender, I'm good to go. The best way to store a watermelon is actually to put the whole watermelon in the refrigerator. You can keep it like that for 7 days. Once you've cut into the watermelon, it's going to dry out more quickly. You can try wrapping it in plastic wrap, but that will still only get you another day or so because it's going to dry out very quickly. The best way to do that is just to eat it all in one go if possible. A couple of other foods that we can mention are bell peppers, which go in the high humidity drawer. You can keep them there for about 2 weeks. If you keep them on your counter, they will last a couple of days and they will start getting those red shoulders. They'll start turning colors. They'll also get a little bit mushy and wrinkly, and that's what we want to avoid. Oppositely, the tomatoes you want to store at room temperature, but not in direct sunlight. You can keep them on your counter for about 7 days. Do not store them in a refrigerator or a plastic bag if you're planning to get more than a day or 2 out of them. Strawberries you can store unwashed in a single layer on a paper towel in a covered container. So again, we don't want to be using the same carton or plastic that we get from the store. You want to transfer them into a different container. Now I've said for all of these berries to store them unwashed. An option you have is to wash the berries in a mixture of 1 part vinegar to 10 parts water, and that should make them last longer. They might smell a little bit vinegary. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate it. Hopefully you are leaving with some information that will improve the quality of your food or your wallet. Again, if you go to my website at jezlehman.com/shopping saving, you'll find these slides as well as some of the resources I mentioned earlier. You cannot find this page from the main menu of the website. It is strictly for people who have attended the classes, so you'll have to put in that shopping saving point. Thank you again for watching and have a great day. Thank you.